Hello, music fans. We're at the end of October 2024, so it's time to count down my 10 favorite metal, rock, and prog albums of 2024. And I'll start with my number 10. And right off the bat, I'm going to actually start with two black metal albums. That's not my usual genre, but my number 10 and my number 9 are similar in that they're avant-garde black metal. So I'll get those out of the way. I know they're not for everybody, but if you like the weird avant-garde black metal stuff, stay tuned for my number 10 9. Number 10 is Oranssi Pazuzu with their album Muuntautuja, some kind of Finnish word, I think. The title track is my favorite track so far. This is psychedelic black metal. It's got trip hop influences. It's very strange. The fourth album by this Finnish band, who I'd never listened to before, but I heard that title track and I just found it very interesting. And it's unique psychedelic synthesizer heavy black metal. And if you're a fan of bands like Enslaved, Doedsmaghird, and Doedsmaghird, similarly avant-garde and strange black metal artists, then definitely check this out. That's Oranssi Pazuzu with Muuntautuja, and hopefully I'll write down the names of these albums in the description so you don't have to figure out how to spell that. And my number 9 is another one that I mentioned that's similar to this, which is Doedsmaghird and Omniverse Consciousness. This is progressive black metal with death metal, avant-garde metal, industrial, electronic, and classical influences. And one of my favorite tracks so far is Sparker in an Ipendor. Now this, I'm not sure what language that is. Maybe it's Norwegian. I don't know. But Doedsmaghird is a new project from Yusuf Vikotnik Parviz, the mind behind the band Doedsmaghird, and also the guitarist from that band, Camille Giraudoux. And I don't know why they gave it a different but very similar band name to their main band, but I do love the most recent 4 releases from Doedsmaghird, their main band. They make this very creative, progressive, and avant-garde black metal that blends a lot of genres. That's what made me check this out. And when I listened to it, I think it fits in perfectly into the Doedsmaghird catalog as a follow-up to Black Medium Current, which I love. So even though this is a debut album from a brand new project, these are veterans from the band Doedsmaghird, and it kind of carries on their discography from my perspective, because it's similarly strange and avant-garde black metal, lots of weird stuff thrown in, like electronic and industrial moments, soft piano moments, some clean singing, but a lot of the more expected black metal style with shrieking, fast tremolo picking riffs, fast drumming, and an evil dark atmosphere. Again, check it out if you're a fan of Enslaved or Doedsmaghird. I think they should have just released this under Doedsmaghird name, but perhaps some of the other members of Doedsmaghird weren't into it, so they made the offshoot. Maybe that's the story. I don't know, but it's awesome avant-garde black metal music, so if you like that, check it out. Number 8 is DGM with Endless. This is progressive power metal. Check out the track The Great Unknown for a preview. This is the 12th album by this Italian band. Another band I'd never listened to before this year, but the single that I heard ahead of time, which was The Great Unknown, it's great. It features violin. If you're a fan of Evergrey and Dream Theater, I think you'll like this band. The album manages to be heavily inspired by 70s prog rock while also being really accessible and catchy with pop hooks. It has a bit of heaviness and heavy metal and power metal vibes to it. There's nothing too extreme in the heaviness though, so it's very approachable. It's all clean vocals. My number 9 and my number 10 are for weirdo freaks only that like the shrieking. This one I think is could be pretty enjoyable to anyone. Like you could play it around your grandparents and they wouldn't freak out. Number 7 is Frost with their album Life in the Wires. This is neo-progressive rock with electronic, alternative, pop, and metal influences. And it's also in my excellent tier, as are all the albums that I'm going to mention today, except my top two, which I am putting up in my near masterpiece tier. If you want a preview track for Frost Life in the Wires, check out Life in the Wires Part 1. Awesome track. That's the first track I heard from the album, as it came out ahead of time. Now, this is the fifth album by this supergroup from the UK, and they feature experienced members like Jem Godfrey, John Mitchell, who's been in It Bites, Arena, Asia, and more. It has a solo career known as Lonely Robot. Features Nathan King, who has performed with It Bites and more, and Craig Blundell, who has drummed on tour with Steven Wilson and Steve Hackett. Before this, though, I had never listened to a full album by Frost. I really should, and I plan to go back and listen to more albums from their back catalog. But I love the singles I heard ahead of this. The rhythms in the intro of Life in the Wires Part 1 are awesome. It's the second track on the album. Then the album has as its second last track an almost 16-minute prog epic, which is Life in the Wires Part 2, also a great track. The musicianship of the players in this band is excellent. The album's long. It's an hour and 25 minutes long, but it has variety. Every song is solid, so it doesn't feel too long. And this is all not really metal, all clean singing. There are some kind of heavier, chuggier instrumental moments, but fairly easy to listen to, nothing too extreme here, but also pretty interesting and pretty progressive. Number 6 is Childish Japes with Matters of Life and Death, Part 2. I liked Part 1 a lot, and I was excited to check out Part 2. This is an interesting blend of genres, kind of alternative rock with jazz, soul, and indie rock influences. Check out the song Vignettes for a preview. This is the fifth album by the American band Childish Japes and the third album by Joanna Teeters. It's a collaborative album between Childish Japes and Joanna Teeters. And I love the last album they did together, which was part 1 of this. It's great jazzy guitar, soulful female vocals. If you like the release from earlier this year by Willow, I think you'll like this. My favorite track is Vignettes so far. Number 5 is The Smile with their album Cutouts. This is art rock with post-punk, electronic, alternative, experimental, and progressive rock influences. Also in my excellent tier. Check out the song Zero Sum for a preview. It's an awesome song. And this is the third album by this band from the UK. The band features Tom York and Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead fame. So check it out if you're a fan of them. And this might be a hot take, but I think the 3 albums by The Smile have been better than anything Radiohead has done since OK Computer, even though I did like A Moon-Shaped Pool quite a bit, so that rivals some of the output from The Smile. One of the singles they released from Cutouts, Zero Sum, has just the coolest guitar playing I've heard from Johnny Greenwood. He uses a dotted 8th note delay effect and a technique with his right hand where he taps it against the strings on each downbeat to mute the strings, and it makes a percussive sound that acts as a metronome while playing notes in between the taps. It sounds so cool. That made it my favorite song by The Smile yet. And this is the second album The Smile put out this year. They put out an album earlier in the year called Wall of Eyes, which is also excellent. And I think this is even just a little bit better than Wall of Eyes for me. Number 4, I have Blood Incantation with their album Absolute Everywhere. I was maybe even considering putting this higher, maybe considering putting it at my number 3 or number 2 or 8, maybe even number 1. My top 4 are all really strong. This is progressive death metal with space rock, ambient, and prog rock influences. Check out the song, the Stargate Tablet 1, as a preview of this. This is the 4th album by this American band, Blood Incantation. Lots of time signature changes here between 4, 5, and 6 beats per bar. I even think I heard some examples of 9. I didn't count it all out yet, but heard lots of changes. Lots of stylistic changes as well between intense death metal and soft atmospheric ambient synth parts. Imagine a combination of Shine On You Crazy Diamond by Pink Floyd and Hammer Smash Face by Cannibal Corpse, and then you pretty much get this Blood Incantation album. So check it out if that sounds good to you. Number 3, I have Devin Townsend with PowerNerd. This is alternative metal, I guess, with hard rock, progressive metal, ambient, and country influences. Check out the song Ruby Quaker, which is the most fun song on the album for me. And this is the 22nd album by this amazing Canadian vocalist and guitarist. He's made so many different albums in so many styles over the years: extreme metal, prog rock, ambient noise, new age, country. He takes inspiration from musical theater and all sorts of unexpected places. Most of what he puts out is excellent, just like this album. I enjoyed the 3 early release singles from this. He's my favorite vocalist in the metal and rock world at the moment, so I'll listen to anything Devin Townsend's involved with. And this album continues his amazing string of vocal performances. The sound of the album overall, though, is a little simpler and more straightforward than his usual more complex and progressive music. It's got more of a party rock vibe and focuses on catchier and accessible melodies. There is still some heaviness in some of the harder riffs. Ruby Quaker near the end actually picks up and becomes pretty heavy, even though it starts very soft and acoustic. So it's a fun song. Vast majority of the vocals, though, are clean vocals on the album. It's probably a pretty easy album for people who aren't into anything too extreme or anything too progressive to get into. I prefer his more progressive and extreme works, but I really enjoy this still. I think it's even better than his last album, Lightwork, though it doesn't reach the heights of some of my favorite Devin Townsend albums like Empath, Transcendence, Deconstruction, Ghost, Epicloud, Key, or Addicted. Still excellent. A contender for my year-end top 30, but I'll be honest, with Devin, I was hoping for something that would land top 5. So moderately disappointed with the direction he chose, but he perfectly executed what he was going for. Ruby Quaker stands out from the rest of the track list. It uses more acoustic guitars, has a country vibe, is sillier, and sings about how he loves coffee. Then it gets progressively crazier as the song goes on. It gets heavy towards the end. And Jainism is my favorite of the 3 singles he released ahead of time, but I also like Gratitude and PowerNerd. Gratitude is more of the slower, soft ballad song, reminiscent of Spirits Will Collide from Empath. If that sounds good to you, check out PowerNerd by Devin Townsend. My number 2 is Better Lovers and their album Highly Irresponsible. This is metalcore with mathcore, southern metal, post-hardcore, and hardcore punk influences. It's a debut album by this American band. The band formed in 2023 after the dissolution of Every Time I Die. So they're kind of a super group. They feature members formerly of Every Time I Die, Jordan Buckley, Stephen Michichi, and Clayton Goose Holiak. And the Dillinger Escape Plan's frontman Greg Puciato does the vocals here, as well as current member of Fit for an Autopsy, Will Putney. If you're a fan of Every Time I Die, you're going to like this Better Lovers album. And it sounds just like them. But of course, Dillinger Escape Plan's fans should also like this with Greg Puciato's involvement. The album is just something that I need to listen to more. It makes me want to keep going back to it. My favorite tracks after 3 listens so far that I've given it are Drowning in a Burning World and A White Horse Covered in Blood. Definitely one of the best albums of this year for headbanging and moshing. It's got breakdowns, but not like the deathcore style breakdowns with how low and slow your guitars can go while making animal screams over them. These are more fun breakdowns and more like hardcore punk bands without relying on the low guitars. Instead, just having awesome riffs with interesting syncopated rhythms, dissonant, chaotic chords, and some southern metal swagger and groove. And my number 1 album of October 2024 is Iotunn and their album Kinship. This is progressive metal with melodic death metal, power metal, and black metal influences. check out the song Kinship Elegiac. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly now, hopefully. The second album by this Danish band, I thought their debut album, Access All Worlds from 2021, was very good. The singles I heard from Iotunn ahead of the release, I Feel the Night and Iridescent Way, were also excellent singles. And they really upped their game since their first album. They opened the album with almost 14-minute prog epic called Kinship Elegiac. The rest of the album continues this amazingness, and I think it's a near masterpiece in my top 20 albums of the year so far. I will be shocked if it doesn't end the year in my top 30. Yeah, definitely check it out. If you're a fan of prog metal, you have to hear Kinship by Iotunn. And that's it for my 10 favorite albums of October 2024. What do you think of these albums? Have you heard any of them? Do you like them? Do you hate them? And what are your 10 favorite albums of October? Or if you don't have 10, put down 5 or 3 or 2 or 1 or whatever. I'm always looking for good music. So put it down there if you think I'll enjoy it. And stay tuned for next time. My next video, I'll be talking about what I'm going to be listening to in November. So stay tuned for that if you want to know the great metal, rock, and prog albums coming out in November. Hit that subscribe button, and peace out.